Alex, I was out in the barn last night. This was around 1 a.m., trying to coax a stubborn bearing off a 1950s jointer. I had enough penetrating oil on my hands to slip out of a pair of handcuffs, and I thought to myself, Tiger, you're either a dedicated craftsman or a man in desperate need of a hobby that doesn't involve heavy lifting in the dark.
I'm putting my money on the latter. Was there a specific moment between the cursing and the WD-40 where you realized you'd reached peak maker madness?
It was when I started talking to the bearing. I told it we could do this the easy way or the angle grinder way. It didn't listen. It never does. But that's the life, right? We're all just out here trying to make inanimate objects behave. And speaking of behaving, welcome to the TigerDen podcast. It's Monday, April 20th, 2026, and we are looking at a future where the tools might actually start talking back to us.
Well, hopefully, they're more polite than your jointer. We've got a massive show today. We're talking about humanoid robots in the shipyard, a $1,500 toolbox fairy for tradespeople, and the literal multi-million-dollar secret behind goat milk soap?
It's a wild world. Let's dive straight into the high-tech deep end. So there's this outfit, Xeris Automation. They just dropped this HF pre-weld system for pipe manufacturers. Now, usually pre-weld is just a fancy way of saying, I looked at it with my eyes and it seemed straight-ish. But these guys are using algorithms to catch a millisecond of deviation before the torch even fires up.
See, that feels like cheating. Half the fun of welding is that nervous sweat you get, wondering if your seam is going to look like a stack of dimes or a flock of pigeons flew over it.
Man, I've had many a pigeon day. But when you're doing high-pressure pipe, oops isn't an option. It's fascinating, though, because this high-level tech is trickling down. We're seeing those South Korean shipyards using humanoid robots now. Not just a robotic arm bolted to a floor, but actual bipedal machines shuffling into cramped halls where a human welder would usually be getting a chiropractor appointment for life.
Honestly, Tiger, I'm looking at your shop right now. If a humanoid robot walked in here, would it even find the floor under all that sawdust?
It would probably short-circuit out of pure judgment. But it's a sign of the times. We aren't being replaced. The grunt work, the stuff that ruins your knees and lungs, is being outsourced to the machines so we can do the actual thinking. Plus, with Basic Metals expanding their footprint by 42,000 square feet, the supply chain for aluminum and carbon steel is actually looking healthy for 2027. It means the stuff to build with is going to be there.
Which is great, because you can't build a career out of thin air. And speaking of careers, if you're listening and you're just starting out, maybe you're an apprentice or a student, there's basically a bag of money sitting on the table for you right now.
This makes my heart warm. Bring Back the Trades just opened up their national grant program. They're giving out $1,500 grants every month specifically for tool programs.
Wait, $1,500? That's not just a starter kit? That's a, I finally don't have to borrow my boss's beat-up impact driver kit.
Exactly. You know how it is when you're starting. You're buying the cheap store brand stuff that rounds off every bolt it touches because you're trying to pay rent. This grant is the difference between struggling and actually having the right leverage. And if you're in HVAC, Training just opened that advanced technology training center. It's less like a classroom and more like a flight simulator for furnaces.
I think people underestimate how techy the trades have become. You aren't just banging on pipes anymore. You're navigating smart home ecosystems. It's basically IT work with more copper.
It really is. And that's the bridge to our next segment. Whether you're a plumber or a woodworker, if you're doing it for yourself, eventually you start wondering, could I sell this?
We talk a lot about maker moguls, but the story of Beekman 1802 is the gold standard. They went from making goat milk soap on a farm to a $92 million empire. And Alex, they didn't do it because their soap was soapier than everyone else's.
Right, because at the end of the day, soap is soap. So what was it? Was it the goats? They have very cute goats.
The goats helped. But it was the story. They sold the why. They sold the idea of the farm, the heritage, the honesty of the process. In 2026, the market is flooded with mass-produced junk. If you're a maker, your biggest asset isn't your table saw. It's your narrative. People don't buy a custom dining table because they need a flat place to eat. They buy it because they want to tell their guests about the guy who spent 3 weeks hand-rubbing the finish.
It's the value ladder. I saw that Shopify just put out their 2026 guide, and they really hammered on the validate before you scale thing, which I think is a polite way of saying, don't quit your job to sell birdhouses if nobody has bought a birdhouse yet.
I feel attacked. I remember once I built 25 artisan birdhouses out of reclaimed barnwood. I thought I was going to be the birdhouse king of the Midwest. Turns out, Birds are very picky, and so are customers. I ended up with a garage full of very expensive kindling.
So the lesson is test the waters, use digital ads, hit the local markets, see if people actually pull their wallets out before you buy a fleet of delivery trucks.
Precisely. Start small, verify the demand, and build the story. Once the story catches fire, the scale follows.
Okay, but for the people who aren't looking to build an empire, the ones who just want to hide in their garage and make something cool this weekend, what's the centerpiece project for the month?
Oh, we've got two ends of the spectrum. First, the big win, a custom built-in desk. If you've got a blank wall in your house, you can transform the entire vibe of a room with some basic framing and some clean trim work. It's the ultimate intermediate project because it teaches you that walls are never actually straight and how to hide that fact with molding.
The great lie of construction. Nothing is ever square.
Never, it's all an illusion held together by caulk and prayer. But if you want a real challenge, something that'll make you pull your hair out in a good way, try a cabinet humidor.
A humidor? That sounds surprisingly technical for a box.
It's a masterclass in moisture control. You're working with Spanish cedar, which is finicky, and your joinery has to be airtight. If that lid doesn't whoosh when it closes, you've failed. It's one of those projects where you learn to appreciate a fractional millimeter.
And I'm guessing you need all 60 tools from that essential woodworking list the Maker channel just dropped to pull that off?
Heaven no. That list is great, but it's a menu, not a grocery list. You don't need 60 tools. You need the one tool that solves your current bottleneck. If you're building cabinets, maybe you just need a better jig for shelf pins, not a new $5,000 bandsaw.
See, this is why I keep you around. You're the voice of reason that keeps my credit card in my pocket.
Usually, except for when I'm talking to Bearings at 1 a.m.
Well, we covered a lot of ground today, from AI welders that can see the future to soap makers who conquered the world. What's the big takeaway for the den today, Tiger?
Looking at all this, the tech, the grants, the business side, it all comes back to the same thing. Whether you're using a humanoid robot or a hand chisel, the craft is just your ability to solve a problem with your own two hands. Don't wait for your shop to be perfect. Don't wait until you have all 60 tools. Just go out there and pay your dues to the wood or the metal.
And maybe don't talk to your tools if they don't talk back first.
Fair point. Go build something, folks. We'll see you in the den next time.